if she wanted to apply for Access. She did, and one night during dinner, her mom told her she got it. She was so excited to go to school that would fit her needs.
I remember specifically when I first came to Access in 2nd grade, on the first day, I hid in a tire for all of recess, and I was terrified of talking to other kids, and when the recess bell rang, I came in and I did my work, but I don't think I talked to anybody for most of the day. And on the 2nd day, I started to come out of that tire. If anything, this school needs to grow, not be diminished.
For me, the school is not just about providing services to highly gifted students and meeting them at their level, but it's about having a community that really understands what they're going through and what it's like to be highly gifted. And I think that's really helped me a lot. We've all really made this place more like home for each other.
It's been a place where I feel like I'm understood. I don't have anybody who really hates me because I have more knowledge than other people in my class.
A lot of students were bullied at other schools because they were smarter, and here it's a safe place for them.
I didn't really like it at my old school because I was made fun of a lot, and I feel like I don't really want other people to go through that. And as soon as I came to Access, that kind of stopped for me. I feel safe here. I feel like I can be who I am, and I like that.
For me, Access was a place where I could be who I am and make friends without omitting parts of my identity. We have a really safe and connected space here, and that's really important to me to preserve.
Access is being able to sit in the front of the classroom and learn and not have to hide in the back with a book.
Now I have friends, too many friends, and every day I go to school and love my teachers and love my peers and love the education that I get. I have a community of people to support me.
Here it's more acceptable for you to want to learn, because at my old school I would be known as, calculator or stereotypical Asian girl who likes to learn, because I don't know, that's how it goes.
I didn't fit in very well, and I never had very good friends. And I think that Access has been a very important part of making me become who I am today, and now I know where I fit in.
Well, I've been at Access for 5 years, and I want to stay for 3 more, because I made so many strong friendships. I don't want to leave them.
I have a lot more friends here than I did at my old school because, we have a lot in common. We're all weird and it's cool.
I've had such a great experience here, and if that were just to be pulled out from underneath me, I don't know what I would do. That would just be heart-wrenching.
Also, pretty dang mad if I was in 4th grade like it's somewhere else. I would not like that.
Since I'm in 8th grade, this is my last year at Access, so you might think that I have nothing to lose if this program is closed. Well, actually, I do have something to lose if this program is distributed into the new regional model and Access Pathways becomes the future of this program, because what this program means to me is that we're not just all learning at our own level and rate in isolation. We're doing that together. And that makes the learning even more powerful. And if you get rid of that, then it's serving more people, sure, but it's serving the people that need to be served the most, not as well.
Splitting us up and dissolving us won't strengthen us, it will weaken us. And I think that we need to find another solution.
It feels like you want every kid to fit in the neighborhood school, even if it isn't the best place for them. Please find one place for Access. Kids who need something different deserve to find their place too.
Her 1st and 2nd grade teacher would always tell the class that school is like your second home, and your classmates are like your second family. I wrote this to tell you how much Access has meant for me and helped me along the way. Sincerely, 4th grade Access Academy.
Join us in singing our school song. There was a little flyer on your seat when you came in. It's The Elements. Well, I don't need a flyer, but yeah. They want to start? Right there. There's antimony, arsenic, aluminum, selenium, and hydrogen, and oxygen, and nitrogen, and rhenium, and nickel, neon, dimium, neptunium, germanium, and iron, americium, ruthenium, uranium, europium, zirconium, lutetium, vanadium, and lanthanum, and osmium, and astatine, and radium, and gold, and protactinium, and indium, and gallium, and iodine, and thorium, and thulium, and thallium. There's yttrium, ytterbium, actinium, rubidium, and boron, gadolinium, niobium, iridium, and strontium, and silicon, and silver, and samarium, and bismuth, bromine, lithium, beryllium, and barium. There's holmium, and helium, and hafnium, and erbium, and phosphorus, and francium, and fluorine, and terbium, and manganese, and mercury, molybdenum, magnesium, dysprosium, and scandium, and cerium, and cesium, and lead, praseodymium, and platinum, plutonium, palladium, promethium, potassium, polonium, and tantalum, technetium, titanium, tellurium, and cadmium, and calcium, and chromium, and curium. There's sulfur, californium, and fermium, berkelium, and also mendelevium, einsteinium, nobelium, argon, krypton, neon, radon, xenon, zinc, and rhodium, and chlorine, carbon, cobalt, copper, tungsten, tin, and sodium. These are the only ones of which the news has come to Harvard. And there may be many others, but they haven't been discovered. Okay, Superintendent Guerrero, can you come forward? We have a special presentation for you.
I heard you might want one of these, so I'm super excited to be handing this to you, knowing that we're going to be working together, finding access, one home, and not just doing that, but improving tag services across the district to a new horizon.
I'm a little overwhelmed. I think I said last night I was hoping to earn your trust to receive one, and you're handing it to me on good faith up front, so that means a lot to me. Good evening, everybody. Buenas tardes. From my interactions with the students here, I know that they know some pretty advanced Spanish, so I know that that's not a problem when the students of a community can engage with you in a real-world, thoughtful conversation and not skip a beat in a second language. It's pretty impressive. So before I share a few words, it's important I acknowledge my new bosses since I'm on day 12 on the job, so I want to make sure and do that. We do have a number of members of the Board of Education here this evening. Director Scott Bailey, if you could be recognized, Director Mike Rosen, Dr. Julia Esparza Brown, Rita Moore, and I was just talking, there she is, Julia Brim Edwards, our board chair. Did I miss one? Paul, are you hiding back there? Paul Anthony. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, you have more than a quorum, Access Academy. In addition to that, I want to make sure you're also aware, I think we have most of the entire leadership team of the school district here as well. And I won't go name by name, but we have our Chief Strategic Officer, Dr. Laura Parker, our Communications Directors, Harry Stiv, Dave Northfield, our Deputy CEO, Youssef Awad, our Assistant Superintendent of School Performance, Antonio Lopez, There's so many people. Vaughn Trong, Teaching and Learning Assistant Superintendent. Kylie, HR. Mei Lee, Budget. This is a name test for me. More than anything, a number of our principal supervisors for various clusters. It was important that they be here, and I believe some of our school leaders are here present as well. And I think you all know this gentleman over here. Andrew, do you want to stand up and be recognized? So Andrew and a small fledgling team has really had the task of engaging many of the community here in Portland around how we might best support and serve our talented and gifted students. And so, as I've already shared with him one-on-one, we got to double down on those efforts, and that really is the intent. So I appreciate everybody gathering here tonight. I don't know what the microphone feedback. Thank you. Testing 1, 2, 3. You're taking me back to my 20s here, only I had a lot more hair. I used to front a heavy metal band, believe it or not. She knows what I'm talking about. So I know a percentage of you were there last night, judging from all the green shirts, and I shared some opening remarks there, and I'll try to remember some of the points that I hope I expressed last night, because I want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to hear that. And before I share that, I just want to, because when I watch a video like you've prepared here, which is pretty impressive that was put together in a short amount of time, and as I've had a chance to spend the day here, or a good portion of the morning, engaging the students, seeing what's happening in the classroom, as an educator, as a parent, to hear a student say, I can be me, I can focus on my learning, I can make friends, I can be around people who are somewhat similar but different in our uniqueness. It garners an emotional reaction because it feels right. It's the thoughtful thing to do, and our kids speak truth, and it's coming from the heart. So it resonates in very powerful ways for me, and it is a core belief of mine that in this work and the privilege that we have to be as leaders, that we be student-centered. So I just want to say from the outset, I owe the school community an apology. And I have to own it, because I'm the new superintendent. And so in the urgency at trying to arrive at drafting a solution for what to do in displacing the academy, what we should have started doing is understanding the school community and coming to visit. We should have had a listening session like this. Together we should have co-constructed a conversation. And I'm not going to fault the staff and throw them under the bus for that, because they did exactly what I asked them to do. Come up with some answers, come up with some possibilities. And even though it's a draft, we needed all stakeholders at the table as we imagined that. And so even though there were never any final decisions made, we're talking about you and you're not there. So that doesn't feel right upon reflection. So I just want to offer that up front. So what are we trying to accomplish here? Well, the board in its first, I don't think it's hit its first 100 days, it's trying to do something pretty monumental. It's trying to establish 2 new comprehensive middle schools because there was a vexing equity dilemma in the city of Portland and PPS. And we all know there's pros and cons to a K-8. But we know that students weren't getting that comprehensive experience in the middle grades. If we're going to reimagine what that looks like at those levels, you want to make sure that there's equitable opportunities to take the range of electives, to engage in the kind of learning that only a school that has economy of scale can do. And so there was this decision made to sort of move forward with the reconfiguration. And I'm understanding and learning that there was, there's been sort of some efforts back and forth at doing that. And here we are, excited about naming 2 new comprehensives and the feeders that go with it. And while we're at it, there's some balancing that needs to happen because the enrollments are off. The city of Portland is growing, families are thriving, neighborhoods are growing. There's a lot of school-age kids, thankfully, thank you all of you, I guess we call it the catchment rate here, is that what it's called? You're choosing to come to the schools in your neighborhood in percentages and rates that most cities would be proud of to come close to, and we do it here. So that says a lot about the support for our public schools and why we need to work hard to continue to maintain your trust and confidence in the public schools. So caught up in all of this, and there's still a little bit of debate going on with our policymakers, and they have a tough job to do, and we're going to call the vote next week, and that'll be a big moment. As we thought about this site, it displaced the academy, the Access Academy, and therein lied sort of the dilemma. And so what do we do about that, right? So can we try to sort of audaciously move forward in trying to accomplish a few objectives? We hear, and there's been a lot of work that's happened over the last number of years that we're not meeting the needs of all kids out there. And I do feel very strongly about all the subgroups of kids out there, whether you're African American, special needs, second language, or gifted and talented. And there's been recommendations that have been made by parent leadership groups about some possibilities for doing that. And I think in the attempt to try to think about, well, how do we expand and enhance services? And how can we make that accessible to our families so they don't have to travel across town to do that, and so that we don't break them apart from their neighborhood peers? Is it possible to do that in a kind of a regional service delivery model, right? Which is what you all heard. And so how do we sort of make sure that every school offers along the continuum the kind of new differentiated supports and interventions that students need, regardless of sort of what that need might be? Because in the end, a 21st century education should be moving towards a more individualized learning plan. The education should be personalized in the way that students here are describing. And we have a whole lot of work to do before we get to that point. And so clearly, families feel very strongly about preserving what you have, because it's been a hard-won battle just to get to this point, right? And it's a school community where kids weren't feeling like their unique needs were being met across the portfolio of schools, and they've landed in a place where being weird is okay. Is that how the quote was? So I can relate. And so, it's a very threatening thing to hear that there's this idea out there that somehow we could recreate 8 access programs in the course of 10 months. And yeah, that would be a daunting task. So here we are. The question remains, you've heard that there's a commitment to try to keep the Access Academy intact. And the problem is we have the buildings that we have. And after the vote next Tuesday, we'll know truly sort of what remains. And so we need to have a conversation and some next steps around what are the possibilities. Let's sort of put those on the table. And that's not a meeting we can have with 200 people, but if you can pick among you some delegates who can look at, and there would need to be a lot of pieces involved, programmatic, but starting with some of the logistics and facility needs. What would be helpful to us is to understand what are the requirements, like how much classroom space do you need? Is there a lab that involved? How much counseling? What would a learning center? Like, let's get an inventory of what would be the minimal needs, and then we have to sort of have a pragmatic conversation around where are all the spaces that exist. And I think you're going to see sort of what we were challenged by, but I think it's better to just be transparent about it, and sort of together maybe we can figure it out. And I was supposed to say that at the end, because I think what you want to do is continue to share some stories, but I just felt like I needed to say that. So we're here sort of in the spirit of learning, continuing to learn more. I think I've read every letter, every words that were shared by students. I certainly talked to the 8th grade leadership team. They were not shy about sharing their feelings about all of this, which I appreciate agency in students for sure, and had a chance to visit a good many of the classrooms engaged in the learning. I was pretty impressed. There's no way I could ever do that math myself. That's why I was a history music ed major. But clearly there's something very unique and special going on here. And I just want to reaffirm there's a double commitment here. There's how do we serve the students that we find enrolled in Access today, And how do we also create within all of our traditional neighborhood schools an ability to differentiate for the needs of gifted and talented students, which, by the way, we're not totally identifying all categories of giftedness right now. So we actually have some work in screening and ID as well, so that we can name what some of those supports could look like in all of our schools. And that's on us, and we need to do that with the community, and we need to build off of a lot of study and recommendations that have already been constructed. So, as I said before, you know, a lot of homework's already been done, so maybe we can move this a little faster. So, I think I'll stop there, because we really want to hear from you, not so much from me, and then maybe we'll close it out with some closing thoughts. How does that sound? Okay? All right.
Thank you. Just a few announcements before we turn it over to the Adams. So childcare is upstairs in the library. If anybody hasn't discovered that yet and you have kids and you want to drop them off with childcare, is in the library. Restrooms, I understand parents at Access are well-trained not to use these restrooms, but tonight we're using these restrooms. If you follow this hallway straight down and down a few steps, there are women's and men's restrooms, or boys and girls restrooms, that are signed for adults not to use, but they're okay to use tonight. So just be really clear, those are our restrooms for the evening. There is still some pizza in the other room, I believe. More importantly, perhaps, there are lots of seats in the other room. So those of you who are standing around the perimeter, what's being captured on the camera here is being shown on the screen in the other room, and the audio feed is in the other room as well. So if you'd like to go take a seat, you're more than welcome to, and I think there is plenty of space in there. I also want to introduce our interpreters for tonight, if anybody needs interpreters. So if you'd please come up and introduce yourselves.
Buenas tardes, me llamo Lucía, soy la intérprete en español. Si me necesitan o desean un aparato para traducción, voy a estar acá sentada. Gracias.
Quý vị, trong cái hội trường này có những ai là phụ huynh học sinh Việt Nam á, thì quý vị có vấn đề thông dịch thì tôi sẽ là người đại diện cho cộng đồng mình để dịch cho quý vị nha. Và quý vị có thể có cái microphone để quý vị có thể nghe, và quý vị cần cái gì quý vị lên đây liên lạc với tôi. Tôi tên là Teresa. Cảm ơn quý vị.
Thank you. And just a few notes about sort of the purpose of this evening. There's a lot of PPS staff here. There's a great number of board members. The superintendent is here. They're here to listen. Access parents have put together a presentation that's going to run about an hour, I understand. And there are going to be some speakers involved in that as well. So I think the tone's already been set. And I don't want to be too heavy on this, but let's be really respectful of people when they're speaking, make sure that we can hear them. And importantly, I think if you really like what somebody says, if you could hold your applause until they're done speaking, because we want to make sure that the people who are here to listen get to hear everything that people say. So let's just be really careful about that so that everything that gets communicated gets received. But again, I think the tone's already been set and it's a great one, so I'm looking forward to a good program tonight. And with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Maxine.
Good evening. I want to be the first person to thank you. Thank you for your leadership, for listening, and having the courage to say that maybe there were mistakes along the way. So on behalf of all of us, I just want to say that first off. Thank you. And I've got too many things in my hands, so I'm going to set this down right now. I also want to thank, just sincerely, the board. I am honored. I can't believe that we have all of these representatives from our district, educators, teachers, and most importantly, our community. This is a really important issue for all of us, and I'm grateful, we're all grateful that you've all been engaged in here. There's 3 things I'd like to accomplish with the next few minutes. Number 1, we're going to be sharing our story. And stories are powerful. Stories are how we connect, how we propagate information, how we find empathy. And so tonight, it really is about sharing the story of all of us. And we'll find those common threads in each one, but they're unique. And so we really are thoughtful about trying to represent as many people as possible, knowing that that's not possible. So thank you for your understanding. There's so many of us who wanted to share our stories. And so I'm grateful for the opportunity that I'm going to share just a snippet here. Because why I'm here and why many people are here is because this school is a resource, and it's a resource that we need to spread throughout the district. And I had a transformational experience in a school like this. I grew up lower middle class, daughter of a very depressed mother who was abusive and had been abused herself, as well as a father who was doing everything he could to make ends meet. So from an early age, I was the primary care provider for my little brother. And we watched a lot of TV. And Sesame Street, somehow I learned how to read and started kindergarten, was a different kid, and didn't really understand what it was. I didn't really have books, so I didn't really have a way to know relative to other kids. I was just different. And that got worse and worse. And in third grade, there really wasn't a safe place. There wasn't a safe place in my home, on the street, on the school bus, or at school. And I had an enlightened and amazing third grade teacher, Miss Cantwell, who arranged for another parent to take me to be tested. And I guess I did okay. I remember liking the test. And I was accepted into our pull-out program that's very similar to Access Academy. And that first day of fourth grade is a day I will never forget. And so for so many students, that day is transformational, and it was for me. And that day was the day that I found a home and where I was accepted, and that was everything. And from that day forward, I had a community and I had a place. And I had a teacher who asked me where I wanted to go to college in fifth grade. I had no idea what college was. And he explained it to me, and it sounded amazing. And I had proclaimed proudly I would be a doctor someday. And from that moment onward, I had a vision and I had a goal. And I became a physician. And that man, I've reached out to him since, really made a huge difference in my life. And that is what this school does. This school does this for so many children. They're at risk. And this is something that needs to be spread throughout the district. And we need to be very intentional about finding those kids whose families don't have the resources to find it for them. And so that's really what Access wants to do. You have a community behind you. Your vision of a regionalized TAG and expanded program, that's our vision. And we are dedicated not to saving our school for our kids, but for every kid. And we hope that with this program, we can bring everyone else up to understand why this is an important place, because these kids don't get served in their regular classroom. So we're going to start with the education portion of the program now. Okay, so what is Access? This is an alternative education program. We had lawyers working all weekend trying to figure out what exactly we are defined as. But we are an alternative education program for students whose needs are not being met in a general ed setting. This is not a choice. For students who have suffered and who can't find a home anywhere else, this is the only choice. Students are highly accelerated, often asynchronous. So what we mean by that is their intellect is disproportionate to their age. They're often outliers in their previous school, as you're going to hear. And many are twice exceptional, which means on standardized norm tests, they test out of the into the 99th percentile, but also they have their other challenges that oftentimes would identify them needing SPED support. And those kids, you can imagine, have even more barriers. We're accelerated, and that's why a one-site option is really critical. We have 40% of all elementary kids in middle school math, 40%. So everyone has math at the same time if there's a middle or elementary school child in their class, because they all have to go to the right class. And 38% of all medical, soon to be, but middle school kids in high school and college math. So our teachers have to be credentialed to teach high school math as well, which, we have so many middle school teachers in this district. That's easy to come by, I'm sure. Okay, so everyone else is accelerated at least 1 year in science. We also have a science teacher who's licensed to bring these kids up to high school with a year of science credit, and all grades and everything is accelerated at least 1 year. And the peer group is key because those peers, they push you more than probably a year. So Access is the only PPS program meeting the special educational needs of highly gifted students. This is the only one, and that's not for long, we hope. It's a unique and thriving community, as you will hear. Students are grouped by grade level, and that is key. They're engaged and challenged with advanced age-appropriate curriculum. So you don't have a third grader going into an 8th grade class surrounded by 8th graders. You've got a third grader with many other children in every grade in between. And everyone accepts that and expects it. So it's not something that's unique, it's actually the norm. These kids deep dive into curriculum. They ask great questions, and they're empowered to find the answers. They walk to math, as we talked about, and in everything we have up to 5 years of acceleration. We serve the students who score in the 99th percentile on nationally normed tests, so that's how you get in, that's the first hurdle. And then you have to demonstrate that your neighborhood school setting has not worked for you. And that's not true for a lot of 99 percentile kids and higher. They are okay. These kids have already struggled, and so they come here looking for a place. We've got 338 students in grades 1 through 8, one of those classes being a blended 1-2, and then 2 strands of everything else. And the 2 strands is also really important. You can imagine the burden on some of these teachers, and some of these kids, they just don't click, and the energy needs to be balanced, and so you have to have 2 strands to balance that for everyone. So is this an elite, inaccessible school? No. We are serving 90% of the Portland Public School neighborhoods. We've got 8 buses now, which is an increase. It keeps getting greater. And those buses bring the kids to our one home here on the map from all over the district. So because we're in all 90% of those neighborhoods, we're also in 90% of the elementary and middle schools. So we're not reaching everybody, but we're getting there. We were conceptualized in 2002. Margaret DeLacy's here. She was the leader on that, and she continues to be a leader for us, and we're grateful. Wherever you are, Margaret, I know you're here. We started with 112 students in grades 1 through 4 with 4 teachers, Dr. Garcia being one of our founding teachers. We were in a plan to grow to 500 students in grade 1 through 12 by 2006. We haven't gotten there yet. We opened at Sabin, and we became an independent program with our own administrator in 2006. Our community really pushed for universal testing, and that was something the district did start in 2011, 2012. So all second graders were to be tested, and if they met criteria for access, their families were to receive a letter letting them know. And so from that time on, we really had an explosion in our waiting list, and we aren't done yet. There's a lot more kids out there. And then we got to move to Rose City Park for what was planned to be 2 years in 2013. So now we're back again to 338. We were actually at 350 last year, and the enrollment went down. I think there was a miss with the enrollment criteria in the lottery last year. So we've got work to do there. There's a lot of kids who had been on a waiting list who didn't get to enroll. And in March 2017, under the guidance of Mr. Andrew Johnson and the TAG Act going to the Teaching and Learning Committee, they unanimously voted to expand us to 3 strands per grade in the setting of an expansion of TAG services throughout the district. So there's word on the street that we're pretty white. That's true. Portland's very white. And we're too white. We've got 70% white children here, 56% in the community at large. So we are not reaching our underrepresented communities. And that's clear from our numbers in our Black and Hispanic communities. We are clearly under where we should be. Another important factor for the learning environment here is we have IEPs for 14% of our students. That's about 3 times what you see in the TAG population, but it's about equal to the community at large, and that is important because this is a bell curve that we're looking at, and we have kids on the 99th percentile, and there's kids who fall on the lower end of that spectrum, and so this is balanced as you expect for a bell curve. And then 504 plans, we have about 7%. It'd be a lot higher if these kids were not at Access. Intellectual giftedness transcends race and income. That is something we all know, but it's not being seen here yet. Our community is committed to increasing the diversity here at Access. And we have been working in sync with the TAG office to improve and widen the identification process, so we're here with you. We'll help figure out how we can make that happen. And I bet we've got some kids who can probably model it for us faster than almost anybody. So why Access is necessary? So this is some of the missing information that a lot of people just don't understand. You know, these are gifted kids. They're going to be fine, right? They're smart. They can go anywhere. They'll be fine. And in 1972, it was the first formal recognition that highly gifted kids had unique needs. It was said, and this is the source down here if anyone's interested, gifted and talented children can suffer psychological damage and permanent impairment of their abilities to function well, which is equal to or greater than the similar deprivations suffered by any other population with special needs served by the Office of Education. And in 1972, that was revolutionary. If highly gifted kids' needs are not met, they are at risk for all of these things, and you can read faster than I can, but clearly some of the most important ones, demotivation and low self-esteem. I've got a kid, and he was coasting. He didn't know what it was to work hard. And it's all the importance of all of these kids pushing each other. That's a huge component of this. Lack of resilience, loneliness, inappropriate criticism of others. I think almost everyone in this community has suffered one way or the other from that. You know, we're quirky. We have difficulty with social relationships. That's just taken for granted, but here you get normalized and you learn how to deal with it, and it gets a lot better. And professionally and intellectually underachieving is clearly something that we've seen, and actually I can't find the source, but there was a source, I swear, that chemical abuse is much higher in these children. Oh, it's up there too. All right, so this is the bell curve I was talking about. So our kids are falling in the 1%. I think we had an arrow there that I'm missing, but it's right in clearly this highlighted area. And so these kids are more than 2 standard deviations above the mean on these aptitude tests. At the other end of the spectrum, you clearly have special education needs that our community knows that you have to serve. It's this end that it isn't clear how to serve those optimally, and we think that we can cascade that from here. The most pervasive threat to the mental health of gifted students is the mismatch between the school's curriculum and the student's academic needs. I don't need to say anymore. Okay. So here's a few more things. We know that the most prevalent social environment factors that can affect and put kids at risk are the mismatch of their needs, the school climate. Bullying is clearly something a lot of these kids have dealt with, and a lack of true peers. We heard it over and over in the video. You found a home, you found your people. It's okay to be weird here. The verbally accelerated kids are actually at higher risk than the kids who are math accelerated. And I think that's really interesting. I mean, if you think about how you communicate, you can tell right off who some of these kids are because of their language. Highly gifted are at higher risk than moderate TAG students. A lot of the moderate TAG students are just fine because not only are they smart, but they also are high functioning. And that's not always the case in our community. We've talked about twice exceptional and disadvantaged students. And the disadvantaged students, if you don't have access to books, you don't have a family who understands what your gifts are, you're not in a school environment that helps you, those are the kids who are really at risk in our community. Research indicates that teachers seldom meet the needs, academic or social and emotional, of highly gifted children in regular classrooms with same-age classmates. We clearly understand that. Reducing academic and social isolation. So this is the operational part of this. So we're moving away from the education. Like, why is it important that these kids are all in one spot? Why is it not feasible to do 8 schools? And we're moving on from that. But every time you cascade this program, you've got to have a school of peers, because it's that robust peer cohort that's really the critical factor. The teachers are fantastic and they're important, but it's the peer group that really makes the difference for these kids, at least in my opinion. Statistically, if you're in a school, and I think this is a generous estimate, 1 to 2 kids per grade are going to fall into this highly gifted group. And so if they find each other, that's great, but if they don't, they're pretty isolated. Professional development is tough. Highly gifted learners are different. You've got a lot of other social and emotional needs that not everyone is familiar with. So we'd like to offer the opportunity or the concept of our school serving as a lab school. We've had lots of teachers training here who we see coming back and subbing and working with us. And it is a rich resource here. Our teachers are awesome and they can help cascade this knowledge. We talked about the licensure, that really this is an economies of scale, that this makes sense for the district. And so we had someone do the math. So here, these little people are representing the FTE that we have for all these different services. So it was up here if any of you were able to take a look. But basically, we have half an ed specialist or ed assistant, half a speech pathologist, climate specialist, et cetera. If you were going to keep the robustness of this program and cascade it to 4 elementary and 4 middle schools, you would need 64 additional teachers. Obviously, this district doesn't have those resources. That's not going to be possible. So we're going to have to dream a little bit lower than that, but it's going to be an investment. So we've talked about having to identify these kids. It's estimated that roughly 2,000 kids in grades 1 through 8 in this district would qualify for access. We're not going to have enough room for them tomorrow, but that should be our goal. And historically, we had a wait list of 150, so there's a big disconnect there. We've got a lot more kids. So here's our strategy. We strongly endorse strengthening TAG supports in the neighborhood schools. That is a clear need in PPS, and it seems like it's still a zero-sum game. We're all arguing over those same resources, and we need to figure out how to be more innovative about how we use our resources. We believe a standalone Access Academy will always be needed as part of a comprehensive TAG strategy. And we hope that Access can really serve as a lab school and a resource. I know I speak for many people in this room when we say that we offer you our assistance as we move forward. Okay, so when we look at what our home looks like, we will find one. We need grades 1 through 8 in each location. That's largely because of the Walk to Math program, but also the professional learning community for teachers, and fewer transitions. A lot of these kids have already been to 2 or 3 schools before they get here, and so the fewer times they have to, change is hard for some of these kids, and so really keeping them in one spot is ideal. Robust peer groups, we need at least 2 strands in grades 1 through 5. We've talked about why. And 3 strands in grades 6 through 8. And that really supports all the things we've already talked about. But also grade level instructional teams. We've got a lot of co-teachers here that make huge impact on their students, and it also gives them a break. You know, they get to rotate their schedules. I'm not going to act like I know the challenges there. Teachers are trained to work with highly gifted learners and experienced with 2E learners. If you walk into our classrooms, it's not like the general classes. There's a lot of energy and a lot of different things that these teachers are having to deal with. And we've talked about that. Transportation, if we're really talking about equity, you have to have a bus. And you have to have a bus that isn't going to take you 10 minutes in a car to get to. So hopefully we can figure that out. An age-appropriate classroom curriculum to meet the rate and level. Again, we need our peers, and they need to be in, they can read all kinds of things, but you want them reading challenging, age-appropriate things. Okay, we're almost there. We're on that straight road to the end here. So Keep Access Academy is a PPS resource for highly gifted students. Expand TAG services with our regional expansion. We are here with that vision, right with you. Increase outreach and recruitment of historically underserved students and communities, and address our enrollment policy. Last year, we are happy to help with that, but that did not work optimally, and that needs to be rethought for next year. So we have taken the liberty of giving you a stepwise plan for how we find our next home. So, and to our school board, we hope that there will be an amendment to the board resolution for expanding our middle schools to include access in there. We'd love to be a school, but we're still thinking about how that affects everybody. Assess capacity in the buildings that are available, and some of this is tricky. Scott Bailey was asking for the data last night, and I think it's really key. We don't know exactly where all the enrollment's going to fall and what the borders or boundaries are going to do, but we need space for 350 plus kids. So we got to find where those buildings are and then rank them. And we've got to balance a lot of things: FTE sharing, transportation, maintenance. How much is it going to cost to get a building ready for us? And we have to be accessible to those at-risk communities in this district. We'd offer stakeholder input before you make a decision, and then incorporate a long-term access site into the algorithm for the East Side Boundary Review. We hope that we will be a respected part of that plan and will be one of the pieces rather than the marginalized one. And now it's an empty slate for where we go next. So we look forward to it.
Do you have some speakers as well? So let's go ahead and welcome them up. Okay.
Thanks, and can you turn it on for me? Is that? Great. Hi, I'm Maggie Burkett. I teach 4th and 5th grade at Access. I am so grateful to PPS leadership and board for being here tonight. I'm really grateful. Polish psychologist Dabrowski identified 5 types of overexcitabilities or intensities in children. Highly gifted children tend to have multiple intensities. Here's what this looks like in my elementary classroom. Children with psychomotor intensity have high energy. They need to move. In my classroom, that means we are never glued to our seats. Some students learn while in motion. Students talk fast, work fast, and sometimes develop nervous behaviors. Some students literally climb the walls. And thankfully, staff and students here are understanding, and we help students take therapeutic breaks and stay safe. Sensual intensity means that students experience sensory input in a strong, jarring way. Lighting or temperature changes can feel intense, and the pencil sharpener sound might be painful. We work together here to mediate the impact. We provide calming activities, predictability, and proprioceptive reset activities. Emotional intensity means that my students don't just study American history, they are profoundly moved by it. They empathize acutely. By the end of the day, they are exhausted from this labor. Our counselor and our teachers provide safe spaces for students to share and process their intense emotions. My students are intellectually intense, and this means they have the capacity to think about the myriad topics that I introduce and have their own intellectual passions besides. There is never enough time in a day for all of their passions, but because there is shared intensity, students can find peers to relate to. Imaginational intensity is possibly the best part, but the hardest to satisfy. Students in my classroom inhabit real and fantastical worlds every day. For many, this intensity made them feel different from students in their previous schools. Here it is a shared quality, appreciated by students and staff. At Access, there is intensity all around, and we work together to support students in feeling safe, nurtured, challenged, and understood. Access is not merely an accelerated program, it is an alternative program. We, like the rest of the district, could use more resources. But until then, we will work together to get by. We look forward to working with district leadership to find us a location that allows us to stay together and continue supporting each other. Thank you.
I'm a little shorter than Miss Burkett. This will be important later, promise me. Trust me. My name is Miss McKinnon. I have been lucky enough to be the advanced math teacher with Access for 12 years now. Need to go down a little bit more. And I'm here specifically to talk about the Walk to Math program. I think it's one of the central features of our program, and I think it's one of the most easy to reproduce in other schools as well. I think some additional funding, of course, maybe an additional classroom or space, but really it's quite easy to reproduce. The idea is that students test to their level and then they walk to the correct class, kind of like the Walk to Read program that's run at many schools. There was a brief tiny glimmer where we also ran an elementary enrichment program where kind of like a special, say we have Chinese special and Spanish special, and we have music, but there was also math one year, and so once a week students got a half-hour additional math instruction where we talked about things like Egyptian multiplication and lattice multiplication and all sorts of fun stuff like that, lots of multiplication. Most of our students are working at 1, 2, or 3 grades above their grade level. Typically after that, honestly, I have to be truthful here, we start to kind of fail meeting their needs. Once they hit 4 years, there's a lot of impact. They usually end up on a computer, honestly, in a hallway by themselves. So I'd love to do a better job at reaching their needs. But that brings me to my next point. I have to sneak in a very brief math lesson about the bell curve and the 99th percentile. I just couldn't stop myself, I'm sorry. So I wrote out some facts on this little pretest I have. It's from scratch paper. So I'm going to use height to illustrate this because I think height is something that we can all see, and we're all different heights. I am like an average female height for a person born in the United States, 5'4". I'm like dead center average, okay? And the standard deviation for height is about 3 inches. So what that means is that for every 3 inches, you're another standard deviation from the mean. So let's talk about some facts. If I'm a 6-foot-tall female, and I know some women that are 6 foot tall or higher, they're pretty tall. They're in the 99th percentile, 99.83 percentile, in fact. And that is 2.9 standard deviations from the mean. For men, a 6-foot man, he would be only in the 82nd percentile for height. Now, if you find a man who's in the 99th percentile for height, they might be 6'8". A 6'8" tall man would be in the 99.988th percentile. And that would be 3.7 standard deviations from the mean. I know this is starting getting really boring. You're all having like flashbacks to Stats 101, I'm sorry. Now imagine meeting a woman who is 6'8". They exist. She actually has a TV show. It's on TLC called My Life as a Giant, believe it or not. But it's true, and she is in the 99.999999 percentile for height for women. She is 5.7 standard deviations from the mean. And I'm using this idea of height to illustrate where some of our students might fall with their math abilities, their rapid rate learning of math. Now, what we're asking them to do is kind of hop on my bike and go for a ride. Or maybe vice versa. But anyways, I'm asking a really tall person to ride my bike, and that's just going to be really difficult for them. They'll be able to ride it, though. I don't know that I could ride their bike, but they'd be able to ride mine, although awkward. But I think they would really excel at bike riding if I could get them a bike that fit them. And that's the idea behind the Walk to Math program. is to give students the math class that they're not going to have to like duck through the doorway, if you will, of learning to access what's right for them. So thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And apologies for the painful math lesson.
Hello, Mr. Guerrero. First of all, welcome to the Access community and to Portland Public Schools. Thank you for not dissolving Access. What you said last night, that makes me very happy. My name is Yunji Hatfield, and I am in 5th grade at Access. I started in 3rd grade. It was a very hard decision to move from my neighborhood school to Access. My parents didn't make me come here. I wanted to try it. I told them that if I didn't like it, I would go back to my neighborhood school after a year. Well, I'm still here. Since my first day here, I've loved and admired Access. For the past 2 years, I've been making lots of new friends who've come all over the city. Through them, I learn about all of Portland and how diverse it is, not just about my own neighborhood. I also like that Access serves 1st through 8th graders. We all take care of each other here at school and on the bus. It takes my bus 45 minutes to get here every morning, but it's worth it because of the connections we make and the things we share. I hope that when we work to find a permanent home for Access, that you consider making it easier for all kids to move through it. Last month I sprained my ankle and it was very difficult to use the stairs. I want to make sure that all people of all abilities can easily move through the entire building. I'm very excited that I get to stay at Access through 8th grade. Thank you again for supporting Access and all tagged children in the district. Thank you.
My name is Aiden. I'm 9 years old and in 5th grade at Access Academy. I love Access because the classes are all really interesting and complex. They keep me focused and engaged, which helps keep my anxiety down and helps me to cope better with being in a busy environment like school. Before attending Access Academy, I was bullied, misunderstood, and physically and emotionally hurt for being different. People didn't get me because of my disabilities, and they thought I was nerdy because I was always reading to escape or when I would finish classwork really early. They picked on me and treated me bad. After my principal and teacher witnessed what was happening, I was recommended to Access. At Access Academy, many others are like me. I am understood, and I feel safe, physically and emotionally. To be myself, which is a huge self-esteem boost for someone like me. Staff are nice, flexible, and really caring. At my neighborhood school, when I couldn't control my impulses or was reading at the wrong time, everybody thought I was just acting out. I even got suspended multiple times for sensory overload. I feel like the Access staff really understand me. They challenge me, guide me, and help me to have the tools I need to be successful in life and at school. When I need to take a brain break or work in a quiet area, there are supports to help me do that. I used to feel anxious and isolated. I'm now in my 3rd year at Access and have found my community. I know that I'm really lucky to be here, and I hope we can provide this opportunity for other kids like me. I also think we need to try to stay K-8 to keep our bonded peer community intact and to continue to allow students to participate in programs like Walk to Math with others their age who understand them. Please, we need to keep Access Academy.
Hi. Sorry, one sec. So first, I want to say I apologize. I have to read off my phone because this is kind of a quick, planned speech. And then also, I want to say thank you to our superintendent and to members of the board for being here. Other people have said this, but we really appreciate it, and we really appreciate you not dissolving access. And I also want to say I really appreciate this opportunity to speak because my story is actually pretty similar to other people's, but I think it's important that everyone gets a voice. So, hi, my name is Keenan Gray, and I'm a 7th grader at Access Academy. This is my 6th year at Access, and I have been here since 2nd grade. As with most students, much of my life revolves around school, which means that for going on 6 years, my life has revolved around Access. I have all of my friends here, I have understanding teachers here, and we as a school have a community based on connections as well as learning. If I had not gone to Access, I may not have the courage to stand here in front of you today. Access is such an important part of my life, and it is for many other kids. And we need somewhere to go. Access is a second home for many kids who needed something more in their neighborhood school, whether that be assisted learning or higher level classes. It has helped me and many other peers to have people who, it has helped me and many others to have peers who accept me for who I am. My story began in kindergarten when I, along with 3 other current Access students, 7th graders, had one of the most amazing teachers I have ever had. She's such a good teacher. Her name is Miss Foster. And she helped me so much, but it was kind of depressing to have to sit outside and do worksheets while other students were learning. And I was an outcast. So I was outcasted before I came to Access, and this was when I was only 6. When I came to Access, I had welcoming teachers and classmates. I wasn't immediately friends with everyone, but I had people that understood me. I found friends and a sort of family here, and that is so important. Access is not just a tag program. As so many have said before me, Access is a community. At my old school, I didn't have friends, and I didn't have a curriculum that suited me. As a girl and a person of color in a world where it is difficult for girls and people of color to get any education, much less education that suits their needs, I'm so grateful for this opportunity to be here. To have a community that supports me. It has helped me develop my passions. I enjoy computer programming and social justice advocacy. It has helped me develop confidence. And I'm all for implementing tag programs in all PPS schools, but not at the expense of Access. We need to be reaching underprivileged and underdeserved students of all races and incomes. We need to expand tag programs in all schools that reach the students that aren't being reached now. But we also need to have Access as a community for people like me and people like, well, everyone else who's here. I really hope that you're able to find Access a home, and I want to thank you again. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Armando. I have been here only last year, but I really liked Access since the first time I came to it. In my old school, I would get into a lot of trouble. I didn't really have any social problems, but I did have some problems controlling myself. So I would spend a lot of time in the hallway just doing my work there. But at the end of 5th grade, my teacher recommended Access to me because she said it would be more fitting for my needs. And moving here meant that I couldn't speak to many of my friends and that I wouldn't be connected to them anymore. So that was a bit of a problem for me. But after the first month here, I found a lot of new friends. The Access community was very accepting, and I realized that it was worth the trade of losing contact with my friends and not getting to speak to them as much. That was a good trade for coming to this community. This school has also helped me refine a lot of skills that I had in 5th grade because I couldn't really go all the way with my with what I knew in 5th grade, and here it's just helped me go above and beyond. Going here has been really great. All these 2 years that I'm gonna be here. Yeah, that's it, and thanks for listening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Marcellus Doyle. I'm a parent. My son's a 3rd grader here at Access. I just want to thank Superintendent Guerrero and the school board members and the board for listening to us. This past week, I've been fortunate enough to meet with a few of you, and we were at the district meeting last night, and I want to say we're really impressed by the fact that you're taking the time to actually evaluate this program instead of just making a rash decision. So I have a few things that I want to say. Unfortunately, your opening comments kind of blew mine out of the water. Kind of stole my thunder because apparently it seems like you guys are getting the message. But my son, his experience was such that in kindergarten, he pretty much served as the class helper. I mean, he went around and helped his fellow students and his peers. And fortunately for him, unlike some of the stories that I've heard, it wasn't so bad for him. But his educational experience was pretty much non-existent. He wasn't really learning, he wasn't being challenged, and we were fortunate. I mean, I'm hearing a lot of stories where a lot of these parents had to fight and get their kids in, but fortunately for us, our principal and our teacher noticed him and pretty much told us at one of our parent-teacher meetings, there's nothing we can do for him, but we do have an option for you. Access was that option, and fortunately for us, we were accepted, and he's blossomed. I mean, within the first month of him being here, he was reading books book series, 6, 7 books, and he was plowing through them so that he can come back to school and talk to his friends about these books. And some of the parents probably know which ones they are, but it was just amazing, And he was telling me these stories, and finally I picked one up. I said, I have to read one of these things because I don't understand what's going on here. And I got it. Because I was like, wow. And I thought to myself, he's 6 years old, and he's reading through these things. And his peers are reading faster than him. So this school, it works, and this model works, and I'm glad that you guys are all getting the message and realizing that it does, because it's very important to us. And like I say, I want to say a few words to you in Espanol. It's kind of like Spanglish, because I don't know all the words when I come in, so soon I get everything. Pero quiero decir, nosotros agradecemos que usted está escuchando a la comunidad. Y yo estoy hablando con parientes y empleados de PPS, that's Spanglish. And ellos tienen mucha confianza en usted, porque ellos dicen que usted está escuchando y ellos creen que sus opiniones y sus ideas van a estar some action taken on it. That's Spanglish again. So I want to thank you all for being here, and I appreciate everything you've done, and hopefully we can find a solution to find a building for us and for all the other kids that are out there ostracized in the back of the room reading, going to the principal's office, getting unnecessarily suspended. Hopefully we can find those students and bring them here, and if we can't get them here, initiate your program so they can get what they need at the neighborhood schools, okay? Thank you.
Gracias. I just wanted to say thank you for sharing your message in my first language, because then it really sinks in. Pero, as they say in Espanol, estamos aquí a su servicio. We're here in service of our students and our families.
Hi, my name is Tatiana. I want to thank everybody for being here, and very much thank you for coming here tonight and also coming yesterday to Access, because I think it's important to see the school. I also want to thank you for owing about the rollout. Because usually when I see messages, I can't sleep, I'm so anxious, what can I do? That comes from my network of autism moms. But within the last week, I started seeing that from Access parents. So it was a big change. So thank you for calming us down a bit. So my name is Tatiana. I'm actually Ukrainian. If you need Ukrainian translation, I would be happy to provide it. There are a lot of Ukrainians at PPS, you'll find out. I'm also a parent of 2 kids at Access. And our story is that we tried to get into Access for 3 years, and we kept trying because the neighborhood school was not just working out. My kid needed Access from day one because he came in already reading. He taught himself to read by himself. His dad says at 2, I think it's a bit later, but he was reading chapter books, so he had to spend a lot of time just on his own in a corner reading. And the school tried to help, and I can say that the neighborhood school did try very much. But because he was such an outlier, and because he has special needs, it just was not working. They brought in a lot of resources, and we brought in a lot of resources, but things just kept getting worse and worse to the point that we had to leave without finishing the school year. We just had to leave spring break of 1st grade. Was not working out, and we could not get back. We just stayed away from 2nd grade too. And we looked at different programs. We looked at private and charter schools, but they're not welcoming to special needs kids. They just try to tell you at once, you would not be supported here. We looked at different programs within PPS. There are different contained classrooms and push-ins and pull-outs. But again, it was not working because the kid is such an outlier with strong academics, but also special needs that need to be supported. So we kept applying for Accent, and finally we got in for 3rd grade. So happy. So we were hoping it will work out, and it did work out. So now we have a community. It's academically engaging, which is great. It's also very supportive, and it's also very safe. Because if you have an outlier in a crowded school, he becomes like a target for bullies. And when that outlier also is special needs, so he doesn't communicate the same way other kids communicate, the target becomes, it's like maybe even sharper on his back. So I want to give a shout out right now to our Learning Center at Access. Anne-Marie is just a star. Yeah, she's great. She's so great, and she gets our kids. And the proposal to split into 8 would not work because you just can't split her. And we really need her in one place because she just gets the kids and she supports them, and they really blossom with her help. So I think Access parents and staff and children already did the hardest part. They build a community. All we need is just a building, just a few walls and a roof. And so you have an easy task. Yeah. So thank you again for coming. Find us a school. And, I hope Access can grow to the point that there is an automatical place for everybody who qualifies. Yes, because, as a special needs parent, I can tell you, it means so much knowing that there is a spot for special needs kids in a neighborhood school. Because through preschool, we get so much rejection. So many programs would not take kids, but public school has to take you, and it just relieves parents so much knowing there is a spot. But sometimes public school, neighborhood school doesn't work. And kids have go through a lot of painful experiences like we did for 3 years trying to get in. It would be such a relief to know that if you need it, there is a spot at Access. So thank you for coming. Thanks.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người.
Hello everybody. I'm sorry, this microphone isn't working.
Tôi
Hi,
tên là
I'm sorry, not mine. I feel in the counter. You know, I'm sorry. Hello everybody.
Tôi tên là Diệp Bùi.
My name is Diệp Bùi.
Tôi rất tự hào được là một phụ huynh của trường học sinh của trường Access Academy.
I'm proud parents as Access Academy.
Con trai đầu của tôi lần đầu tiên tới trường Access vào năm lớp 6 và bây giờ em là một học sinh của trường Grand High School.
My oldest son, my first son, first came to Access. Now he doing the 6th grade. Now he is a sophomore from Grand High School, right? Grand Schools.
Grand High School.
Grand High School. I'm sorry.
Tuy là học lớp 10 nhưng mà con của tôi đã lấy những lớp AB class.
Even though he in 10th grade, but he got the AB grade.
AB class.
AB class. I'm sorry.
Và hiện giờ tôi cũng có 2 con nhỏ đang học ở trường này.
Currently, I have two younger kids attending this school.
Và con gái của tôi đang học lớp 7 và con trai nhỏ đang học lớp 5.
My daughter is in 7th grade and my younger son in 5th grade.
Những gì tôi muốn cho con tôi là một nền giáo dục cao hơn ở một nơi an toàn và hạnh phúc.
The only thing I wish for my children in the highest education and in the safe place and happiness.
Hàng ngày, khi tôi về nhà sau một ngày làm việc, con gái và con trai của tôi rất là hào hứng nói về trường học của mình.
After a hard working day, I came home and listened to my children talking about they are so happy with their school.
Các thầy cô giáo dạy dỗ rất là nhiệt tình và vui vẻ.
The teacher was so good, and they teach them very, very hard and very sincere. They are really good teacher.
Và con trai đầu của tôi nói với tôi rằng nếu mà em không có được học ở Access Academy thì bây giờ em sẽ không có được giống như bây giờ.
My oldest son said, if he is not attending Access Academy, school here, he won't be as good as he right now.
Tôi cũng như tất cả các bậc cha mẹ khác, tất cả chúng ta đều muốn những gì tốt nhất cho con cái của mình và nơi đó chính là Access Academy.
Myself and I believe other parents also want the best for our children. That's why we need to have our children attending Access Academy.
Vì vậy, chúng tôi rất là mong muốn trường Access được tồn tại và phát triển để nhìn thấy con em chúng ta phát huy hết khả năng học tập của mình.
Therefore, we would like to save our Access and together as a community for our children to have the best place for education.
Và để sau này các em lớn lên thì các em có cơ hội để phục vụ cho cộng đồng của chúng ta.
For future, when they grew up and they became a neat person and value person for our society.
Cảm ơn.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for some, corruption because we didn't practice, okay?
Hello, my name's Kurt Kemmerer. I am a father of a 6th grader, and I'm also going to talk a little bit as a mental health provider today. Again, I'm also profoundly grateful that Access has been here. I don't know what our family life would have been like without it. I think Portland's climate is a little bit similar to where you came from, So my usual advice to new people here is don't buy a heavy coat because you'll never wear it again after the first winter. Just in case. My child has already told his story at Sabin. I guess he skipped school and told it again today. He also told it 5 years ago when when the board was trying to find access a place then. He was definitely an outlier, even though my wife and I really didn't know it. When he was 3, I would take him to jazz clubs, and he would sit there and in rapt attention and then ask to go back the next night. And I thought that was normal for some reason, even though I'm a pediatric nurse. But I won't go more into his story too much. Access is where he's home. He needs it. There just isn't another place like it. As a mental health provider, I've also worked with highly gifted children there. Some of them could have benefited from a school like Access. Some did not. Some of those who didn't get a school like this checked out of school, checked out of social engagement. Many of them lost interest in activities that once sustained them. There was just no support for those interests at their level. Their development suffered in most areas. Longitudinal studies do show that gifted children who receive the educational challenges with their peers need less supports and achieve more as adults. I've also worked with kids who were struggling in their neighborhood schools and came to Access. Before they came to Access, they were in therapy. Some of them were in medication treatment. Every one of them needed less therapeutic investment and time for their families after they came to Access. Some of them no longer needed medical intervention. Highly gifted kids, that's my main point. The other things I guess I really want to say as I've been thinking here is, I think it's already been said, but this teacher team took a long time to put together over time and come together. And I think it would be devastating to tear that apart. I have another aside real quick as a mental health provider that isn't necessarily tied to this. But as a mental health provider who knows the issues with bullying in middle schools, I really hope you guys implement a program that really addresses that with your new schools. Thanks.
I'm not an official speaker, but I organized all the speakers. And I have to tell you, we had a really hard time narrowing it down. A lot of people wanted to talk about our school. So I'm here, Superintendent Guerrero, I'm here to give you a challenge. So when we get new students come into our program every year, I'm a parent, I'm in my 12th year as an Access parent. I'm also in my 12th year of teaching choir to all of our elementary students once a week. So when my students come every fall, new students come, I give them what is called the Elements Challenge. And if I give them the lyrics to the Elements, and if they are able to sing it for me memorized before Halloween, I give them a dozen homemade donuts. So since I'm only giving you the challenge now instead of 6 weeks ago like I did for my students, I'll give you till Thanksgiving. But if you're able to memorize the Access Elements song that we have sing as our school song, I will happily give you, for Thanksgiving, I'll give you a pie.
Is that all the speakers you have? Okay. I'm going to hand it back to you for some closing comments.
I'll be brief. I just really want to appreciate our students, our parents, families. The testimony's powerful. The stories are real. I think we're picking up feedback from two. It gives an opportunity for those of us who have to try to facilitate solutions, some important information, some foundational information that's going to be very helpful in trying to do the best we can. So I'm going to tell you from the onset, there's not going to be a perfect immediate solution probably. So I'm going to ask for your patience up front to see there might be a short-term solution, there might be a long-term solution. I just can't predict it until we sit down together and look at that. So I think, as I said in the opening, as a next step, we'll ask among yourselves to identify a few people who can sit with staff and try to look at the facility dilemma first. And if we can resolve that one, which would be fantastic, then we can talk about some of the programmatic pieces that we want to make sure accompanies. But I think somebody said it just now that I think really summarizes what I'm learning here. A school community isn't the building. It's all of you. It's the students and the way they describe their experience day to day. It's in the magic that happens in the classroom. It's families coming together in the best interests of their children. And so I can really appreciate that. If we had a similar level of engagement in every one of our buildings, and we had the same kind of strength in those school communities, I think we'd be in a very different place in public education, not just in Portland, but everywhere. So when we see that school communities are thriving in that way, we should be trying to do everything we can to nurture and support that. So that's the commitment we're going to make at this point. We're going to have to engage into looking at the challenge ahead of us and see what we can come up with. And I think hopefully we can come back again together and kind of share out some possibilities. And we can have that community conversation at that point. All right? How does that sound? Okay. So with that, we'll say goodnight. I think staff will hang around a little bit if folks have some questions, and if any member of our board wants to say a few words. I feel a little guilty because Access families have been pretty busy the last few days. You probably haven't had a chance to do the laundry with the t-shirts, so you'll have a chance to do that now. Thank you, everybody.
I'm one of those board members that you're sending lots of letters to, and I haven't quite answered them all yet, but I'm working on it. But I did get a letter a couple of weeks ago from one of your students, and it was kind of snarky. And I'm a snarky guy, so I related to it, but let's just say there were some insinuations about the intelligence level of the board, which I took in the best possible way. And so I responded. We had some fun, and she was kind enough to introduce herself to me tonight in person, so that was great. So we've been talking a lot about challenges. I want to challenge the Access community. By my count, there's only 102 elements. Where's the third verse? Where's Laurentium and Rutherfordium and Bohrium and Seaborgium, right? Darmstadtium, Copernicium. Where are there's like a dozen more. So I want to see a third verse that scans, that you know, it's got the rhythm down to it.
Thank you, Director Bailey. I'm on it. I have a prize for you. Okay, what is the prize going to be? You know how good I can bake. Come on, people. You can do it. Of the best verse, best new verse? At least a pie.
Okay, on pie, I think we're gonna call it a night. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. Thank you for all of our speakers for sharing their thoughts. Thank you for the presentation, Maxine. Thanks all for coming. Don't forget your children if they're in childcare. Please pick them up. Have a good night. Thanks.